It's extremely being now. Yeah, well, for them to rebuild. It ought to be rebuilt or that's the core. That's if they need to be a course.
Yeah.
Shipped out.
Okay, we'll call this council public hearing to order. It's August 3rd, the time is 6 p.m. Topic is street vacations of sections of right of way along North River Street, North First Street, Columbia Boulevard, and South River Street, etc. Over to our city planner, Jacob Griffin.
Thank you, Mayor. Our associate planner and project manager will conduct most of the staff report. However, this is a public hearing where the council will make a decision eventually in deliberations. So we want to cover just a few matters. First of all, this is for the council. Does anybody would like to declare a conflict of interest or bias in this matter?
I think I was advised by legal counsel to step forward and say that I know the Mr. Locke intimately from the our time on the council. It's up to debate whether I should recuse myself from the vote or not. But I definitely want to deliberate on this circumstance, this situation.
Well, the first question is that in your mind, you feel like you are indifferent in the decision.
Let's say yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
And then have to say the same thing, being I'm on the council.
Okay. And Councilor Topaz, you feel that you are indifferent nonetheless in your decision making on this matter?
Correct.
Thank you.
And I will say that I have a relationship with Keith Locke and a person who is a budding property owner who's affected, Steve Costin. So I don't feel that I would have any favoritism. I'd listen to the facts and be able to move forward.
Thank you.
I know Mr. Locke, way back as helping fix my first computer. Anyway, but no, I know Mr. Locke in over the years, acquaintance, but we have had very minimal contact. Here, so I believe I'm able to make an objective decision.
Okay, great, thank you very much. So this is for,
Small town.
yeah, small town. So this is for anybody in attendance, either here physically or virtually. Would anybody like to challenge the ability of any of these counselors to make a fair decision on this matter?
So how many, give us your decision on what you just heard. Is Mr. Topaz voting? Am I voting?
Well, what I hear is that there's nobody who feels like their prior relationships affect their ability to make a fair decision. That was disclosed. I appreciate the honesty of everybody. I do not see any takers on challenging the ability of a counselor to make a decision. So I think we got that out as needed. And with that, we can get on with why we're here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jenny Denshaw.
Thanks. So tonight we're looking at a street vacation. It's a pretty complicated one, as evidenced by the 72-page staff report that the council has all received in their packet. We're looking at 4 applicants. So we've got Keith Locke, Laura Locke, Diane Marie Dillard Revocable Living Trust, Susan Jones, and the Williamson Trust. So there's a partnership and an application for multiple streets that affect 5 abutting property owners shown on this map here. So there are 3 streets involved. We've got, thanks Kathy, that helps. We've got North First Street, we've got North and South River Street, and we've got Columbia Boulevard. And I'm gonna try to talk about each one kind of systematically. All of the widths requested to be vacated are 25 feet wide, except for North First Street, which is 30 feet wide on each side. So that leaves 30 feet remaining public right of way along Columbia Boulevard and 20 feet remaining public right of way on North First Street. So as with all street vacations, we look at the Oregon Revised Statutes. It's section 271120, and that includes our criteria that we base our decision on. And in addition to proper notice to the paper and notifying anybody on site that there's a street vacation public hearing, the applicant also has to get a certain percentage of affected property owners' signatures. And so that's what this map is demonstrating. The affected area is shown as the thick dotted line around the red areas to be vacated. And we draw a 200 by 400 foot affected area around each street that's proposed to be vacated. So you can see that that dotted line kind of follows the requested vacation area. And so in this case, the applicants received 72.3% of those affected property owners' signatures on consent forms, which is more than 2/3 required. So 66% is required. And so that's why we're here. They gathered the proper signatures. We've notified the paper and we've posted on site. So that's kind of those first 3 steps are met for the ORS criteria for approving a street vacation. So as part of this, here in the city, we have this proposal go before the Planning Commission for their recommendation to this body. And on June 14th, the Planning Commission did review this decision or this street vacation request. 2 people recused themselves and 1 person was absent at that meeting, but they unanimously recommended denial of the full street vacation request at that meeting. And then also unusual for a street vacation request, but this did go before the Parks and Recreation Commission. And that was by a request of the actual commission to look at this. And it's because of its relation to trails that they reviewed this proposal. As we'll talk about in a little bit, there are some trail components on 2 of the streets, Columbia Boulevard, River Street, and 2 of the streets have trail components related to them. And so the Parks and Rec Commission felt like they should weigh in and make a recommendation as an advisory board to this body. They sided with the Planning Commission at their meeting. They also recommended full denial of the street vacation. So that leaves us with the last ORS criteria, which is this body has to determine whether the public interest will be prejudiced by the vacation of the streets at hand. So we're focusing on the term, will the public interest be prejudiced by vacating these streets? So public interest has many components, as you know, you probably grapple with that every day as a counselor. So I'm going to focus on 3 main public interests that are related to right-of-way. One is public utilities and the utilities of our partner providers, CurpHUD, Comcast, CenturyLink, Northwest Natural. 2 are public views, so maintaining public views. And 3, transportation. So transportation includes vehicular access, but it also includes non-motorized access, so trails, bike trails. And in this case, we have a very specific transportation plan, the corridor master plan, which was adopted in 2015, that has a number of improvements in this area. So that's what I'm gonna have Kathy turn to now. So on page 22, Kathy. Perfect, and I think it's 23 because of the agenda, so one more down. That's up, go down. Oh. This one, perfect. Okay, so this is an excerpt from our corridor master plan. Now, if you're not familiar with it, the corridor master plan looked at Highway 30, St. Helens Street, and Columbia Boulevard couplet all the way down to Riverfront District, and made a number of recommendations for transportation improvements. Now, it looked at this area and made a number of recommendations, which you can see here. So it said, number one, we should build a stairway to River Street from Columbia Boulevard right of way to connect Columbia Boulevard's dead end down to River Street below. So that's what you see kind of on the right-hand side there. That's connecting down to River Street. It's a staircase. Number two, it recommended a raised crossing along the transition from First Street to Columbia Boulevard. So if I may take this and just point it out. So that's this section right here. So this is supposed to be a raised crossing to connect the existing sidewalk along First Street to a proposed sidewalk connection along here. So that's that area here. And then lastly, it recommended in this excerpt here, so this is a blown up version of this area here along North First. So because we're only able to put a staircase at the end of Columbia Boulevard, it recommended a bike trail to connect First Street down to River Street so that you can get there on bike or on foot. So those are the three main recommendations from the corridor master plan that we have to grapple with as part of this street vacation. And then if you can go to page 20, I think that's up a couple pages. Oh, sorry, down one, 21. Perfect. So this is another excerpt from the corridor plan, and I have this in here because the corridor plan also talks about the importance of this area as being a special opportunity area and overlook. And so the bottom shows what it might look like if there were a built-out overlook that has seating for people to rest and look at the view of the marina and the river down below. It also says that one day this area might be closed off to vehicles if maybe the properties on either side redevelop or no longer need vehicular access in that area, and that this area could transform into a pedestrian-only plaza with views of the river. So this plan in 2015 contemplated this area and said, man, this is a great view of the river. We should protect this and we should build this area out. And I say all this to say the corridor plan is conceptual, right? It's only a 30% level design, which means, you know, that we don't have survey, we don't have topography, we don't have construction drawings of this area. So we don't know exactly how wide or what will work perfectly in this area. And so staff feels very uncomfortable recommending approval of any right of way along Columbia Boulevard because we have this adopted master plan. So we need to further that work and build it out to know exactly how big it is before we vacate any right of way. So that's Columbia Boulevard and a basic snapshot of the corridor plan. So there's other components of this, so we'll go on to that now, Kathy, on page 17, and we'll leave it there, hopefully, for the remainder. It might be 18, yeah, sorry. 18. Yeah, one more. This one, perfect. Okay, so this is the complicated web. So aside from the corridor plan, I just want to talk a little bit about the utility conflicts in the proposed areas to vacate. So starting along North First. Could you zoom in just a little bit? I'm having a hard time seeing, so I'm betting everybody else is. Perfect, okay. All right. Looking at North First Street, so that dotted gray area is a gravel driveway that serves one of the abutting property owners at 114 North First Street. And that's kind of the area that's the unimproved portion of North First. There's a large cliff just beyond that gravel driveway, and that's why the roadway has never been built out and will likely never get built out in the future. However, you know, we're entertaining a street vacation here, and we've got a lot of utilities that run through this area. So first, there's a number of utility poles. So along the east side, you can see one of the utility poles, they're in brown, right next to 114. And then just south of that, you can see this kind of circle. We didn't have it on our GIS, but there's actually a second pole there. And it turns out these are CenturyLink provided communications poles. And CenturyLink commented and said they provided a quote for what it would take to relocate those poles so that they were still in the right of way should this street vacation be granted. On the other side, there's another pole, and that has Comcast communication lines, but it's also the power pole. So PUD commented, PUD, and I want to read what PUD said about this because I think it demonstrates the difference between having a public utility easement or right of way to protect the utility. And I've never seen PUD comment in such a explicit way about their desire to keep utilities in right of way versus easements. And I think their comment kind of addresses that. So I'm going to read what they said, and this is in the staff report on page 3 as well. So PUD said, these utility poles, lines, guys, and anchors and other equipment are maintained on a regular basis and upgraded, improved, or repaired as needed. At any time, PUD crews need to be able to access these facilities either in an outage or an emergency situation or during upgrade or routine maintenance events. This means that obstacles such as fences or walls cannot be erected that block PUD access to utility poles, lines, or equipment. If these areas were vacated, PUD would require an easement for ingress, egress, and utilities through this area. The easement options are not ideal as they present a layer of difficulty when changes or upgrades are needed in the future. For this vacation to be possible, the electric facilities feeding North First Street and one home on South First Street would need to be relocated and the services to the homes altered. PUD is a not-for-profit organization and operates on a cost-causer, cost-payer policy. So the cost of moving these facilities and altering the homes would fall to the developer. In addition, as this area develops, PUD would need access to a right-of-way when accommodating city improvements. Due to the complexity of removing facilities for an entire city block due to this vacation, as well as this vacation creating barriers for future downtown growth, PUD objects to the proposed vacation. What they're describing is what we've experienced in other street vacations in the city. When you have an easement covering an area that has either utilities or sidewalks, fences get built, utilities get blocked, sidewalks get blocked. And that's why staff is not in favor of just putting a blanket easement over those utilities. Utilities should be in public rights of way because people understand that's not my property. I can't build a fence there. And PUD is saying the same thing. It's difficult. It creates a barrier for accessing utilities, especially in an emergency situation. So I feel like getting this feedback from PUD, it was important enough to read, and they're a partner, and we should be accommodating them in our decisions. So, moving on. Okay, so there's also a PUD pole on Columbia Boulevard that you can see there just north of that 100 address there, and she's that's Susan Jones's house. She's an applicant as well. So not only do we have the pole conflicts on First, but there's also one really close to a property line on Columbia Boulevard there too. So furthering the utility discussion, so the city operates pump station number 2, which can be seen at the north end of the North First Street area there. And our access to that facility is paved and it wraps around the building on both sides. And a portion of that access is actually in the proposed area to be vacated. And so that would absolutely not be acceptable. We would want to make sure that stays as right of way. We also have a water line, which can be seen in blue there, running north-south along the entire North First Street area to be, or proposed to be vacated. This water line would need a public utility easement for maintenance, and it runs the entire length. So it comes back to that issue of if you're requiring an easement for the entire area, why vacate it in the first place? And so that's why staff feels like this area is just not appropriate for a street vacation, and we're not recommending approval of that area. So moving on to River Street. So the north end of River Street's got a public sewer that cuts across. I wish I had the mouse, sorry, I'm gonna point to it here. So this is the public sanitary sewer main that goes to this manhole here, and then there's lateral services that serve the two homes. City engineering requested a utility easement for this area. It's a pretty steep slope here. And so if this were entertained as an area to vacate, we would need a utility easement to cover the maintenance of that utility. Fortunately, that's the only utility along North River Street. However, there is an existing gravel trail that is partially or entirely within the North River Street proposed to be vacated. And that trail gets used pretty heavily because it connects the dead end of Columbia down to River Street, and you've got Great Park. To the north, you've got the marina. You know, it's a very needed pedestrian connection down to River Street. And so staff felt uncomfortable without supplying an alternative pedestrian transportation. This is the way to get down there currently, and it is currently in public right of way. So staff felt uncomfortable recommending vacation of any portion of North River Street. So moving to south. So this pink area is the recommended area for approval. And it's got this small little triangular area that's notched out. And that's because Jacob went out and kind of stood at the end of Columbia Boulevard and looked at the 180-degree panorama of the river and noted that you can actually see the courthouse and the courthouse flag when you're standing there, but not if the full section, you know, the full rectangular section of River Street were vacated. And so that's why we've preserved this view preservation angle triangle right here. And there's photos of that in a memo in the staff report too, so you can kind of see what it looks like when you're standing. So I think we've talked about all the streets. We've talked about some of the utility conflicts. I know there's a lot of people here that want to testify. So I'd be happy to come back to any one of these things later, but I think that will kind of conclude my portion. Any questions now, or do you want?
Yes, the original street from Columbia Boulevard to North River Road made a hard left turn there. Do we have any historic information on the original street? South River Street was a relatively new piece of road. Do we have any information on the original road down there? Even pictures or?
I don't personally. Are you aware of that?
I've never seen anything. I don't know.
Just really steep and very sharp turn.
Where that was the road that was used for the quarry down there.
For the launch as well.
Okay. So we've had, okay, the other question I have is you mentioned the quarter plan or the master plan. Right now we have Great Cliffs as a park, and we're gonna put a dock in for launching and so on. Was the launching and dock ever part of the master plan, the quarter plan?
No, I don't think so.
Because I bring that up on Third Street going into through Nob Hill. We vacated the sidewalk area. Now people have to walk in the street. Lead time was a number of years. That's why I asked about this hard left turn.
Sure. Yeah, I think you're just touching at the fact that this is an important pedestrian connection and we want to make sure we maintain that.
There's actually an easement for existing sidewalks over there on the Third Street, the North Third.
Yeah.
And there's also been enforcement cases, as I understand, with fences being built. Open it up.
Want us to do the directing?
Okay.
So, applicant always gets the first shot. So it's your opportunity to,
I would like to let Brad Henderson go first, just because he lives in Taggart and he's already been waiting a few hours after his work, so to be here, so
Yeah.
we can just have him.
if that's okay with the mayor who's running the show, we're okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with hearing from Brad.
So assuming he's in favor of. That, okay.
Thank you for letting me broach protocol there a little bit. The only thing I can say is I applied for street vacation on my end of First Street. So I already know that, that end has already been narrowed down a little bit. So when Keith was talking about, I'm like, well, I don't see any reason why you can't continue on First Street. I know this whole sewer pumping station was a big deal when we did it anyway. So you couldn't do it, but the city owns that and it doesn't matter. It's never gonna be a street because of that big drop off of a cliff. The only other thing that I heard or was paying attention to was you were talking about the PUD and easements and stuff. Well, when you're building, you have setbacks. So you can't build up to whatever vacation you're gonna get. You're still gonna have to have a setback from it. So that's where your utilities are more than likely gonna be. I don't know for sure. But that was the thing that I saw in this application was, well, the street's not a full street as it gets down past the pump station anyway. So I don't understand why you couldn't vacate it that far. As far as the other parts of the vacation, I don't know. I mean, I understand that Keith was going to, or the developer was going to actually make that stairway down to River Street that you're talking about, that you wanted to have, instead of the path that's there right now. So I mean, that's one nice thing is you get an actual developer to do it instead of the city having to pay for it. So that would be positive. But other than that, that's,
So I remember this application when you came through and I'm pretty sure I'm correct, but correct me if I'm wrong.
yeah,
Is that you guys actually asked for 15 feet and left 50 foot of road. There.
Jacob, remember? Yes, okay. Let's go with yes, because I'm old. I don't remember.
So because we also looked at Cherrywood, what was over there, that was when we referenced a street with sidewalks and it was 50 foot wide.
Okay,
So that's why we granted you at that time.
Yeah.
and the other owners 15 feet on each side.
right. Yeah. So, I mean, that's the only precedent that it just made sense. So made sense to me. Doesn't mean it makes sense to everybody, so. All right. Thanks, guys.
My turn?
Yeah.
There. Actually, going to leave that slide that was up there for a minute. Maybe not, I don't know. So just a few comments on this. I think this water line here is actually 21 feet from our property line, and it really doesn't show that right there. It looks like it's closer. But, and the gas line that goes in here only serves my property. So it's gonna be relocated regardless. That's the only property it serves. And these two telephone poles that you talked about, CenturyLink, that was one of the first things I did was went and got an estimate from them. It's just under $15,000 to move those poles, and that's part of the plan is to move those poles. Those are the things that, the other meetings we didn't talk about was conditions on things. We used to put conditions on all types of things. If these poles don't get moved, vacation doesn't happen. Pretty simple. Same way here, it's never been talked about, this stairway. And, you know, we had a staff meeting and I'm kind of boggled on why the staff hasn't talked about any of this stuff, because that's all we talked about was building this stairway here to develop Columbia Boulevard. Part of the project. If the stairway doesn't go in, the road doesn't get vacated. It's conditioned. So, you know, there's ways around everything. But, other than that, what I want to talk about is the bike path. This crazy bike path. I killed it once, sitting right there in my council position, because I convinced the council it was unsafe. So today I'm going to tell you how unsafe it is. So now you can go to my slides. Oops, went too far. So this overhead, and here's the hill here. And I already have a topo of everything. It's all been surveyed and topo and everything. I think from the top of this little short hill to the bottom is I think it's about 40 feet. But it drops off 23 feet. And the bank itself, this bank here, the slope, the 70-degree slope. So recommended slope for a bike path is anywhere between 2 and 10% slope, not 70. If you take this distance all the way to the top of the driveway, down to the end of the road down there. It's 40 feet and 160 feet at the 23% slope. So if you started at Columbia Boulevard and had a nice even slope all the way down there, you got a 23% slope. Recommends 2 to 10. So is it safe or not? I'm sure the BMXers and skateboarders would love it. Can be built. With enough money, anything can be built. So that's looking down at it. You can kind of tell how steep it is. So this shows all the topography of it. You can tell here how steep that is going down, whatnot. Oh, pointing the wrong way. So, go one more. About 30 years ago, Steve, you asked about the road going down from my house. 30 years ago, my first committee on a city commission, Riverfront Committee. We met for several months talking about the Riverfront Road. And the whole thing was to get rid of that little road that came up past my place here, because the reason for getting rid of that road was because there was only a one-way road at the bottom of the hill. If there was a wreck down at the bottom of that hill or anything, no access for emergency vehicles or anything. Everybody be stuck down there. So we recommended taking that road out to make a double lane down below. And our other recommendation, by the way, this is Jackass Canyon, by the way, if you don't recognize it. And you can see there's kind of an old grade that runs kind of down here. So the recommendation from that committee was to make a one-lane road with a bike path coming out of there. So that there would be another exit coming out of the marina for safety purposes. So this slope, if you start here and come over here, averages 6%. Well, within safety guidelines for a bike path. Also, with the road there, it gives us another exit out of the marina. And I mean, pedestrian bike, you have extra parking, lots of things you can do on there. There's another view of it. I mean, I don't know why, what I hear, that whole recommendation is gone somewhere. It's nice, you know, there was, I don't know how many of us sat on that commission, but kind of discouraging that those things get set on a shelf somewhere and probably thrown away, and nobody ever looks at them when they're talking about doing projects. So then you got the existing path, which I don't have as on there, but the path that they're talking about that I put in where the old road used to be, the slope on that is 15%. So it's not a safe bike path either. And it would cost a lot of money to get to. I mean, you can never, so that's why when I was looking at things, I said, let's put a stairway in, because it's really the only safe thing to put in, get down. Also, if you're looking, well, we'll go through that, it'll come up later and whatnot, but it shows where the existing path is now empties out about probably 200 feet below the crest of the hill down below me. The hill actually crests right where Columbia Boulevard dumps at the bottom of the hill. So you can see both directions on North and South River Street. So where the existing path dumps onto that road, you can't see over the hill for oncoming cars. So it's not the best place for a crosswalk. The best place for a crosswalk is right at the bottom of Columbia Boulevard, where the stairway would be. So that's what I want to talk about, is that bike path, because it keeps coming up. And I mean, could one be built there? Absolutely. What's it gonna cost? I have no idea. When's it gonna be done? I have no idea. Who's gonna do it? I have no idea. So I'm offering putting one in, a safe one for everything, and here's an alternative that's way safer than the existing one that's there also. So. Oh. So it just. This shows this trail over here on the other side of the canyon. That trail is unsafe for walking, climbing, anything on. It's never gonna be safe. Needs to be taken out of there. The city didn't work on it for eons. They finally put some steps on the bottom part, but the top part is some of the worst part. It caves off every year. But if you had a trail here on canyon, you wouldn't need that trail anymore. So that removes another safety hazard. So that's enough talk about. Rick, you might like this. Guess what season it is? Fitness season. So I'm gonna let Tracy take over from here and go through these slides. Thank you. The left and right button, play forward.
Yeah, my name is Tracy Brown. Keith has hired me to assist him. I'm a land use planning consultant. And I've been a consultant about 5 years. And prior to being a consultant, I was the planning director at the city of Sandy for 15 years. And then worked in the Eugene area for another 10 years as a planner, went to University of Oregon, actually. Got my planning degree. So I'm going to go through my slideshow here. And what we're trying to show in this slideshow is some of what Keith has proposed, the concept for his development, and why the various items that staff has identified are solvable problems. So to kind of get the context, I've done a series of site photos. This is looking to the north at Columbia Boulevard. You can see that trail going down the hill. This is the old road that used to go to the garage that was in the back of Keith's house there. And there's a river street down below. A little closer view of that same trail and that same shot. And as I kind of get to some of the other photos, you'll see that this right of way of Columbia Boulevard is basically at Keith's house right now. It's probably within about less than 6 inches, that 80-foot right of way from the front of Keith's house. So we'll go through that. This is looking from the west and kind of showing that the first street coming down off of Columbia Boulevard there. And I zoomed in on that a little bit.
Point that, bro.
Oh,
I went too far.
whoops. Okay, wait a minute. Going back.
That one, yeah.
There we go. And I guess it's been cleared off recently, that steep grade that Keith was talking about. Just looking the other way from the south toward the north, up, you can see the pump station here, and that the trail comes down on Columbia Boulevard. Okay, sorry about this. Very touchy, but then, all right. A pretty good shot of the trail looking from the east to the west, coming down the hill. And a close-up of it a little bit. One of the items, staff didn't mention it tonight, but one of the items that they mentioned in the staff report is the location of that oak tree, which is actually technically in the right of way. And that oak tree is about less than 2 feet from Keith's house, and that's where the right of way is. So my premise in that is any development that would occur on Keith's property, whether the vacation happens or not, that oak tree is going to be compromised. There's no question about it. And right now it's probably impacting the foundation of the dwelling there. This is looking down Columbia Boulevard. No. Another shot of that, and it has a decent surface, but any development along that would be resurfaced. So this is kind of the view of where that overlook would be in the future. And roughly maybe where that cone is there, as you can envision, I've got a picture of it also from the quarter master plan. You could envision this viewing platform there, kind of overlooking River Street below and the Columbia River and the island. And it could be elevated slightly with a staircase going down to connect with River Street below. So looking across Columbia Boulevard at Susan Jones's house. And in this case, the right of way probably cuts through one of her vehicles here. So the right of way is very wide, and a lot of the improvements on these property, like the stairway right here, this is in the right of way. And I'll show you a survey that kind of identifies where all the stuff is. This is the top of the trail going down the hill. That's probably roughly, there's that cone again, roughly where that overlook would be. What am I pointing at here? Is it your computer?
It's down there.
Okay. There we go. Coming down the hill, and you can see that oak tree up there by Keith's house. That is in the right of way. So it's way up the hill there where the right of way is. And there's the trail at the bottom. You can see it comes down and the gravel is flowing out into River Street below. And it's really kind of a side slope and not, not particularly safe. Yeah. Sorry about this. And there's the pump station at the bottom of First Street there. So what I wanted to do is show you the property survey. So you take a look at this. This is the existing property line right here. So the stairway or that little staircase that I showed you is in the right of way. The porch is 0.2 feet from the right of way, and probably the eave is approaching in the right of way. There's that oak tree right there, right next to the property. Here's Susan Jones's concrete driveway. All that stuff is 15 to 20 feet within the right of way. So a lot of this request is not only to facilitate possible future development, but it's to clean up some of this problem with the encroachments. This is just a zoomed in view. Zoomed in view showing the stairway and the oak tree. And this is on the First Street. You can see the deck of the house on First Street is in the right of way, and that steep slope going down the hill there. So what is proposed? What are we proposing with the vacation? Oops. So as was mentioned, there's 4 property owners who own 5 property. The Locks own 2 properties here, and the other 4 or 3 property owners each own one of the properties. We're requesting that a portion of those 80-foot right-of-ways, you can see those 80-foot right-of-ways pretty clearly, because this is the property line of Susan Jones. And so almost all of her parking is located in the right-of-way, and there's those stairs. And so these 80-foot right-of-ways are vast, and they include a lot of existing improvements. 100% of the abutting property owners signed the petition, and as was mentioned, over 70% of the affected property owners have signed it, a consent form. So we're proposing to do 25 feet on the west side of North and South River Street. This would leave 55 feet of right of way there, 30 feet on both sides of North First, and there would be 20 feet of right of way, and then 25 feet on Columbia, leaving 30 feet of right of way. And so why are they making this request? So each of the property owners have their own reasons for this request. Dillard's property, this one here, it's just to simply increase the lot area and to utilize some of that unneeded First Street right of way. Williamson, kind of the same thing. They're located right there at the corner. Simply to increase their lot area and to use that unneeded right of way. Jones is to kind of clean up and to allow her parking to be legally accommodated on her property, and possibly construct an improvement so she can have covered parking there if it's permitted. And then the Locks, they would increase their property on those 3 sides.
see.
So this is the conceptual plan that Keith has come up with. And he was working with a planner, architect on that. It still needs to go to engineering. But essentially, the proposal would be to develop some number of view condominiums on the property. And any development that would occur would be in accordance with Marina Riverfront District. And as was noted, most of the right-of-way that would be vacated would be taken up in the setbacks. So I believe the setbacks, this would be considered the front of the property, and there would be a 20-foot setback to any buildings in that. So right now, the property is back here. So there's 25 feet. Most of that would be in a setback to any buildings, and that's why you see these proposed conceptual buildings back from that. And on the sides and rear would be 10 feet setbacks. Access will need to be determined. It could either be from Columbia or North First, and that would need to be kind of figured out through more refined plan. And a separate pre-application conference. We're not talking about the design tonight necessarily, but we felt this was important to have as a context as to why is he proposing this. And so it requires separate design review prior to any development. So considering some of the public benefits of this proposal, the property would be developed into new units containing pride and river views. It would increase the property value significantly and add significant revenue to the city's urban renewal district. You're probably all aware that you'd look at the value of what is existing, and that is frozen in the district, and any increment above that with new development that would go into the urban renewal district. We do projects in the urban renewal district. So it's a great way to fund public improvements in your district. And this project would add significant value. The overlook that was envisioned in the corridor master plan with the viewing platform and the stairway down to the river street below would be realized through this project. There'd be, and then that formalized access and the frontage improvements on both Columbia and North First Street would be completed. So this, where Jenny was mentioning, there's the raised crossing, things like that. All of those improvements would likely be triggered by this sort of development. And if the development doesn't happen, it probably will never get done. It's hard to say, maybe someday. So again, this is the corridor master plan. This width right here is probably about 30 feet as envisioned there. Now we acknowledge that this is a conceptual plan and it needs to be determined the exact improvements based on surveying. But I think with this development, we believe that would be helping to facilitate some of these plans. So it'd be kind of a win-win. What I want to do now is just kind of go through a somewhat quick review of the staff report and the items noted. So the items noted on North River Street. The vacation will limit street widening and sidewalk construction, location of the sewer line, affect the gravel trail and the oak tree. Approval of this 25-foot vacation would still leave 55 feet of right of way, which is more than enough to construct public improvements as necessary. The sanitary sewer line right there, that green line, as I mentioned, that could easily be accommodated with a public utility easement. And we're kind of curious, the property directly to the north, and I don't know all the history, but that was vacated at some point. And so we don't know, is that green line on that private property within an easement? I'm assuming it is, but I don't really know. So that's kind of a typical thing for utility lines to be included in easements. The River Street right away directly north of the property was vacated. So as I mentioned, the gravel trail, could be reconstructed outside of the right of or the private property as necessary, or with the improvements with a stairway going down, maybe that gravel trail goes away because it's currently not the safest route. And there are ways to accommodate bicycles down stairways. In Sandy, we did several parking lots that have stairways, and you put a groove in the edge of the stairway, and so you can wheel a bike down or up those as necessary. So somebody could still get down with their bicycle, but they have to walk them down the stairway. And the noted oak tree, as I mentioned, it's less than 2 feet from the existing dwelling. It would likely be impacted with any development. South River Street, concerned with the view looking south. It was not scientifically done. That's to be determined if the view would be impacted or not. My sense is, looking at the grades at the end of that street, I'm visualizing, and you all will have to figure it out, but something that's a little more elevated, so it provides that grand view. And I think if it is elevated 2 to 4 feet and has a viewing platform, the concern would be greatly reduced. On North First Street, there was utility concerns, water line location, city storm line. We're still not sure what that question was or concern. Access to the pump station, future bike ped access, and the Skinny Street standard requires 40 feet of right of way. Utility lines, as was mentioned, can be moved or easements provided as necessary. Keith mentioned this, that the water line is on the city mapping is incorrect because we have a actual survey and it shows it about 21 feet from this existing property line. This maybe is in the neighborhood of 10 to 12 feet. So it's a little farther out away from the property line than the city mapping shows. Storm line can be accommodated within the right of way. As mentioned, topography at the end of that North First Street is very steep and does not provide good access. The remaining right of way is adequate for bike ped access if it's deemed necessary. And the applicants are open to reducing the requested vacation in this area to provide the 40-foot minimum Skinny Street as necessary. So that shouldn't be a impediment to moving forward, just a modification to the request. This is a little more detail on that water line. So on the left is the city mapping, on the right is the surveyed mapping. It does look like it kind of angles in, but generally it's at least 20 feet from the existing property line, not as noted in the city mapping. So that just needs to be kind of figured out a little bit more detail. This on Columbia Boulevard, Columbia Master Plan, concerns with that, limiting utilities, intersection improvements, uncertainty with overlook and the trail and the wayfinding sign. So again, this development would likely complete what's envisioned in the master plan. Of course, there would need to be a design that was done prior to the city signing off on that. And you probably all would see that design before it was approved to move forward. There is sufficient right of way, or there would be, to relocate utilities Intersection improvements will be completed with the developments that occur. The trail can be retained as necessary or go away if there's an alternative provided. The wayfinding sign, it would be easy to relocate that or provide a small easement. It doesn't conflict with anything. It shouldn't be a big deal, and the utility lines can be relocated. Oops. So the conclusion is the applicants have submitted this request because it seems all of the existing 80-foot right-of-way is not needed to accommodate redevelopment of their properties and to accommodate redevelopment of their properties in the future. Redevelopment of these properties, particularly Keith's property, will add significant revenue to the urban renewal district. You know, it could be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars or more, and require public improvements to accomplish, you know, some of the objectives that you have in your corridor or the Columbia River overlook and that master plan. You know, the concerns that were raised in the staff report, we're a little concerned about this one because we did have a pre-app with staff, you know, several months before we submitted the application, and we all got the impression that the staff was generally happy with the idea. So it was a little shocking to see the number of recommendations to deny the request. But, you know, that's kind of here nor there, but I thought I'd provide a little context. We didn't submit this in defiance of staff. We submitted it with the assumption that they were on board with what we were trying to do. All of the concerns identified in the staff report can be addressed with modifications to the request or provision of easements. And the applicants hope to work with the council and planning staff to find solutions to raise concerns and are willing to discuss modifications to the vacation request as necessary. So Keith did prepare a couple of other options that you could all consider if you would like, if I can get to them. So this is the original request, 25 feet on River Street, leaving 50 feet of right of way, 30 feet on each side of North First, and 25 feet on each side of Columbia Boulevard. Option 2, River Street would stay the same. It's at the top in this case. We would reduce the request on First Street 20 feet from 30 feet. And so there would be 40 feet of right of way. And most of those lines would now be in the right of way. And whatever is needed to occur within that 40 feet could occur. Including if it's determined that access along River Street to the development would be desirable, and 25 feet would be retained on Columbia Boulevard. And the third option would be same thing on River Street, same thing on First, and we just reduce Columbia Boulevard to 20 feet. And again, you know, so that would leave the 40 foot of right of way. That's the skinny street standard. And, you know, as it's kind of looking at that master plan, that should be more than enough to complete the improvements that are envisioned in the master plan. And likely that trail that goes down the hill would no longer be within the vacated area. We thank you for your consideration. Sorry about the lengthiness of this, but we wanted to be thorough and we gave you the picture of what's going on.
So I just want to go back and talk about a few things. Get here. What did you say this is supposed to point to? Over there? Okay. I want to talk about Susan Jones' house. Right here. So as you can see, actually, before she bought it, the previous owners put in this cement pad for a driveway. And you can tell that, basically the hood of the cars there are on her property. The rest of the car is on city property. On the east side, there's this huge oak tree there. But the bank actually goes out quite a ways there, and I'm gonna say two owners before Susan bought it. Actually put a fence around that back piece. But the whole fence is almost public property. Where it contains. So. These two houses, obviously my house, 125 years old. I don't know if even there was a city planner at that time, but they built the house right on the corner of the lot. So, yeah, the top of the stairway, just a little over. Or just under 20 feet. From the house, which is a normal setback. And Susan Jones' house, if you took 20 feet back, it's probably about 5 feet from the edge of that concrete goes. So. All public property. Anybody can come, park there, do whatever they want to there. We can't do anything about it. Susan could come home someday and there'd be a party going on in her fenced backyard and she couldn't do a thing about it. They could park all along the side of her house. Couldn't do anything about it. As a matter of fact, I ran into that. I think it was like the first time Marnie came here for Halloween Town. Yeah, there was every parking space available was taken. Every lawn, everything. But anyway, so to get these houses just what they need to begin with. People talked about the historic house. Well, my house is historic, and actually for the first few years I kind of thought about restoring it and whatnot. And as I started working on it, it became the money pit. And there I go. But the problem with it is, as far as restoring it is it's been remodeled, I think 4 or 5 times. It had a fire in the 30s, which gutted a lot of the downstairs. All the original woodwork is all gone. And it's been a rental for 60 or 70 years. So it's had a lot of abuse done to it. It was built before plumbing and electricity, so it's all just a patch mill of things. And somebody wants to buy it, they can buy it and move it. I don't care, but it's the historic value. It serves its life well. But there's a lot of, it has old growth lumber in it. It's hard to even drive a nail in it. The wood's so hard these days. But anyway, one of the things that needs to be fixed is just, here we have the house. And I believe she said the realtor told her that she had an easement there. And I said, I don't think there's an easement there. You don't put easements on public property. It didn't happen. So anyway, like I say, we just need to clean this up and clean these streets out. It's not being used for anything. People are going to talk about the views. Look at all these trees around here. There are no views. If you stand right in the middle of the road here where that sign is, you can see a little bit of water. And when you come out here to where this viewpoint is going to be, which was recommended by the waterfront committee I was on 30 years ago, that's where that originally came from. But these need to be, the whole thing needs to be cleaned up, and like I say, I've got handouts I'm gonna give you counselors. And one of my handout is a kind of a sheet I made, a spreadsheet for the taxes going to the urban renewal district. Depending on how many units, and I guess units, that's I mean, I'm looking at putting high-end units on it. I mean, it's prime area. Everybody's told me that it's prime area. It should have nice houses on it. Should be great, you know, high rent district. And so I'm started off at 16. I narrowed it down to 15 to make it just a little more spacious. And if those, somebody wants to look into something, you ought to go over and look at evaluations on houses and taxes and whatnot. How the county figures that out, I have no idea where they come up with their assessments. But anyway, I did a rough estimate on what these places are going to sell for, about 700,000, and I'm assuming somewhere in the neighborhood of $8,000 a year for taxes. If you take that out over 25 years, is there about 25 years left of the urban renewal? Something like that.
It doesn't have an expiration date as a.
Oh,
State.
seriously?
That's one
How do we do that? Anyway, I just figured out at today's rate, it would be each unit would bring in $8,000 a year. So one unit's already going to pay more taxes than I pay on the whole property already. And so you add those other 14 units, and I kind of calculated out for 25 years, and it came to $2.5 million. And that wasn't counting inflation on the taxes, so it's going to be actually more than that, because they go up 3% every year regardless. So that's a nice little chunk of change for the urban renewal district, and that's kind of how he put my city councilor hat on of the old days, thinking this is a good project for the city, it's going to bring in good money. And not only that, but it's going to put the stairway in, and this street, just a rough guess of Columbia Boulevard and the stairway, I don't know, at least 100,000, maybe 150,000, somewhere in there. Fixing up First Street's another 70,000, 80,000. So all that money, you know, I've heard people saying, well, you shouldn't get this money for nothing. Well, I'm not getting property for nothing. I'm first of all putting in $300,000-400,000 worth of improvements. It's gonna have to, I mean, it's sloped a lot, so there's gonna have to be work done just to build on it, and rock removed and whatnot. There's a little mound right here has a. So I'll cover with growth right now, but it's actually a rock about this tall, part of the rock. So it's all, the whole thing sits on rock, and that thing they were talking about, you know, the sewer line right now runs down the middle of this block and straight across the street, and then takes a turn, goes kind of diagonally across Diane's place. Because I imagine that's probably, there was already a ravine running down through there when they put the sewer line in, instead of, because if you're gonna put a sewer line down here, you're gonna have to dig through 40 feet of rock to get to it. So, and then one of the things I was looking at there is you put a big ditch down through there, is that gonna affect this little piece that it's gonna leave an island out there, or what? I don't know why you might put lines down, some people, or I don't know why, but I suppose. But it's all solid rock. So anyway, like I say, we offered some different options, and I'm even, you know, other options. One of the things, because we've presented so much, and I've got a handout for everybody my request at this meeting is to leave this hearing open until, the first meeting in September. And, I will provide you with more information and you guys can study all this information. And we can discuss other issues and options possibly at that time. So with that, I'll, close the presentation.
Okay, anybody present, we'll start with people physically present, then we'll go to anybody. There will be a time limit on testimony. Talk to the mayor about that. So anybody physically present would like to speak in favor?
What's the time limit on testimony?
3 minutes for testimony. If you're an affected property owner, you get 5 minutes.
What if my wife and I are coming with it, and
Yeah.
We do have a person in favor, would like to testify.
They are affected.
Evening, I'm David Williamson. I'm one of the trustees of Williamson Trust that owns that little square piece of property there on the corner. You're probably all familiar with it because it grows things like blackberry, political signs. The reason I'm in favor of the proposal is that I believe that lot is about 60 feet by 60 feet. It's a corner lot, so the setbacks are 20 feet on the back, 20 feet on the side, 20 feet on the front, 10 feet on the what would be the west side there. And that doesn't leave very much footprint for a house. Probably about a single wide. I calculated 600 feet. I think when I was at the University of Oregon, looking at various student housing, my apartment was probably close to that. It seemed pretty thin. So one of the things, unless things have changed, I believe there's a statewide planning goal of having an adequate supply of housing for present and anticipated residents. This wouldn't add much, but it would add one. It would also fulfill the goal of infilling with residences rather than bringing in new property from outside the city limits. So, it's a small public interest, but it does exist. It's greater than zero. That's owned by the family trust, and my brother and sister and I are both all trustees. We have a duty to the beneficiaries to make the property income, or if we can't sell it, invest in income for this property. This piece, the net loss to us, brings in nothing. We pay taxes on it. So in the long run, probably going to dispose of it, selling it. Yeah, the thing is, if we could get an additional 20 or 30 feet, we have a little bigger footprint for a house of some kind, and make that much more feasible. So it would benefit the city. I'm not going to talk about taxes, it isn't going to bring in that much, but it would meet people providing some housing. It's also in a location where you with the river, it's close to the river, you have those amenities and the health that's from that. So we don't see a downside unless you're really fixed on that bike path. If you can't get the bike path in the middle and figure out some way down that 40 or 50-foot drop, I guess that's the end of the line on that. But we just think that the utilities to be handled either through if necessary. Basically all of that. If anybody has any questions, they can answer. Time up.
Not yet.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
All right, anybody else physically present?
Yeah.
Who would like to speak in favor?
Yeah.
All right,
Need to know if you're a budding or a fact.
I rent 114 North First Street from Keith Lock.
so you would be a tenant affected. It's logical.
So just wanted to touch on basically the bike path that's proposed. I don't know if you guys have been out there and looked at that since the blackberries have been cleared. It is basically just a drop off. I mean, it would be great to go out there and jump off of it and take a look. But I don't see, unless you're bringing a path all the way up to Columbia Boulevard, there's no way to really put a bike path in there. The view that I have of the marina is amazing. I feel kind of guilty having that view. And for more people to be able to experience that view, I think would be a benefit. I know I'm much happier from where I came from having that view. The path that goes down to River Street. Me and Keith both have worked on that path over the last 2 years. It washed out this winter. We spent a lot of time fixing that, making it better, wider. It should be improved or taken out and just have the stairs put in. I think that's all I have.
Did we get a name?
Darren Bowe. Thanks.
I'm just gonna grab a cup of coffee and with me. Take up your own business.
Is anybody else physically present who's in favor? And we want to start with affected property owners. Then we'll go to abutting just to be consistent. But I don't see any takers physically present in favor. Kathy, is there anybody virtually who would like to provide testimony in favor, starting with affected?
If you would like to present testimony, please raise your hand. On Zoom,
In favor of.
in favor of. No,
Okay, so next category are those who are neutral. And actually, let's just get a poll. Is anybody here physically present who wants to not neutral? Just okay. Is there anybody Zoom who's neutral wants to provide testimony? Raise your virtual hand. Okay. Well, that leaves one more category, those who are opposed. And we will start with, just for the city recorder's sake and tracking the time limit allowed, we'll start with affected property owners. And then we will go to abutting property owners. So we'll start with affected property owners.
Effective will be within that 200 feet range, correct?
Yeah, or yeah. Or people at large. There may be someone who's not in the affected area that would like to speak. And then we'll go with the budding. So affected area or at large who are opposed to this matter and physically present.
I'm affected and abutting. So I don't know which one I am or when I'm supposed to talk, but I'm both. Because I'm within 200 feet and I touch.
Yeah, he's a little bit of both.
And I really use a little sip of water, frankly. So am I gonna go first or it's up to you? Or I can go after the other folks, doesn't matter.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So any affected area or at-large person who wants to testify in opposition?
Yes.
what is at large? Could you please divide that?
That's, you're not. The affected area is the area close where someone may have had to obtain a signature. And so if you're outside of that, say you live on the west side of town, you're clearly not in the affected area. So that would be at
We're gonna
large.
give you 3 minutes. We're gonna get the at large 3 minutes. The effective, we're gonna do 5.
Okay.
We'll get 6 minutes.
Okay.
Yes, my lord. So,
Yes.
I would oppose this
First of all, I think that the house is worth saving. I would like to see that house saved, and I don't think that we need in that particular spot, which is a very scenic view. 15 condos, 16 condos, however many wants to put there. I don't think it's a spot for it. And I think that there are other people that would not find that beneficial to the city that have that kind of a development in that spot. I also find it rather troublesome that Mr. Locke freely admits to eliminating a possible trail that was going to be funded by another citizen that was going to be installed there. And he has said that he killed that project multiple times in public, and then actually uses his action as a city council to kill that project as a reason to say that, well, now you should give me the property because it's not been developed. Well, it wasn't developed because he prevented it from being developed. And I find that to be an ethical concern and should actually be not a benefit to him that he took action as a member of the city council to keep it from being developed. And says, well, now it's not been developed, so I should get that property. And I don't think that's appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, else at large, opposed, and physically present.
Good evening. My name is Brenda Heron-Kanega. I am a resident of the city of St. Helens, and I appreciate the opportunity to address you. I am very concerned about the views. Yes, I understand that there is an argument for sharing the views, which is why I am so passionate about preserving them. Additionally, I would refer to the green and blue spaces and mental health, new evidence and perspectives for action, copyright 2021 by the World Health Organization, which found in part across blue space categories, the most pronounced effects were found for affect and affective disorders. Qualitative studies pointed towards unique and beneficial characteristics of blue spaces, including the visual openness of the space and fluidity of the water. Any of us who have been on the Columbia knows it has fluidity of water for sure. Additionally, the University of Washington College of Environment School of Marine and Environmental Affairs on May 18th of 2022 asked the question whether being near water can be beneficial to mental health. And they said there is increasing research that demonstrates the physical and psychological benefits of interacting with nature. Furthermore, they stated that there is a report that noted that the symptoms of anxiety and depression have doubled globally during the pandemic, especially for teenagers and young adults, which happen to represent roughly 13.5% of our current population, according to the 2020 United States Census report. Furthermore, there has frequently been mention of the needs for those who may be disabled in our community. In the 26th of April, 2021, Frontiers in Psychology, they wrote about the sound and soundscape in restorative natural environments, a narrative literature review, which frequently discussed the effects that sound has on people. And then there's also the evaluation of the visually impaired experience of the sound environment in urban spaces that was published in January 2022. I fail to see how a stairway can be in the best interest of everyone. Where are the strollers? I don't see that. How do people get to the bottom? And if the gravel path is unsafe, that's already been provided by former Councilman Locke, why do I trust him to build another pathway down to River Street? Thank you.
Okay, at large or affected area, physically present and opposed. Have your hand up? Yeah. Of course. And you're next.
Scott and I are coming together. I'm gonna talk fast.
All right, please state your name for the record. Hold up, Kathy.
I'd like these back when you're done. Oh, I do have handouts that are like those, so. Yeah. We brought some for you, Rick.
My name is Scott Jacobson. I'm a resident of St. Helens. I'm going to give my time to Jerry.
We're both on the Parks and Recs Commission. My name is Jerry Belcher, Mayor Troll, City Council, and City Staff. I'm here as a citizen of St. Helens and as a member of the Parks and Recs Commission, and as a member of the Urban Trail Subcommittee, which we've been working on for a long time. I wasn't going to start with this, I was going to might not even say anything about it, but I'm not opposed to people making money. I'm not a people propose to developing their property. It's their property. I was on the planning commission for a term. Mr. Locke has every right to develop his property. I did a quick math here. I didn't realize that, but 15 times 700,000 works out 10.5 million. Now, granted, that wouldn't be all profit, but you know, even if you scale that down a little bit, what I'm really here about is the property that's on both sides of Columbia Boulevard. That's the part I'm really concerned about. The rest of it, city wants to grant a vacancy of that, they can go ahead and do that. This vacation property currently belongs to the citizens of St. Helens, and as members of the city council, you oversee this property. And what is the best interest for the citizens, especially in the long run? We kind of look at things like Mr. Locke said, his house was there for 125 years. I've been here for 48 years. This town is going to be here for hopefully 500 or 600 years or more. This particular, what I'm really concerned about is the viewpoint, because the urban trail runs along River Street on the east side, and we'd like to have a crosswalk there with going up to it. And what I want to say, the parks, the urban trail has 3 overlooks proposed on it, but there's only one of them that is ADA that we've come to, and that would be this one, but they'd have to access that probably along First Street. Shauna Dugan's made the urban trail a priority this year, and she's trying to get grants for it, and it's on the master plan now, correct? I think it is.
Yes.
I think it is. Okay.
I think he was referring to.
Okay, size of the property. The reason I'm concerned about the 2 25-foot sections, that if you take 50 away, I know that they've changed a little bit of their proposals, but if you take away 50 feet from 80, that leaves you 30. This is not.
Go ahead. Gary, go ahead.
Okay, so then the park would be, the overlooking park would be really scrunched. If you look at some of the proposed plans, the concept of it, it would have trees, it would have an overlook, it would have places for people to stay. And 30 feet is, I don't know, I could step this off as I play golf pretty regularly, but not much wider than from here to there. If we're going to have a decent overlook there that's going to, you know, represent the city of St. Helens. The urban trail, I'm on that all the time. You guys know that. You're probably sick and tired of me talking about it. I know Doug is. But, you know, I really think this would add a lot to St. Helens, and this overlook is really vital to it, I think. I think I've already said that. You know, we need to take a long-term look at our city. I mean, it's not all about money. I know that I hope Mr. Locke makes a lot of money in developing this property. That's great. But, you know, that part along Columbia Boulevard that I'm concerned about, the 30 feet on this side and the 30 feet on this side, or 25 feet on this side, 25 feet on this side. I'd like to see that stay in it. You guys represent the citizens of St. Helens. It's public property. You're the overseers of it. And we should not be giving this property away, in my opinion, because this city's going to be here a long time. And when the river walk gets finished downtown and the urban trail is finished, it is gonna draw people into our core, and it's gonna help our citizens a lot. I don't know, I don't wanna say anything else or not.
You got a minute 22.
Go ahead.
Liz, Scott, you have something you wanna add?
Just, the presentation that you heard was mostly speculation. It didn't have a heck of a lot of detail. Hopefully in September, if they come forward again, you'll get some more detail, but it's, you know, there's a lot of numbers are bandied about, and I'm not sure if those are the true numbers or what they really are. So just wondering about that. Also, I'd like to say, you buy a piece of property, the property has boundaries, you know what they are, those are the property boundaries. So now when you come back next, you come out and ask for extra footage, just because maybe somebody's gonna park or somebody's gonna party by your house. Well, you already bought the property, you already got the boundary, so you've already concluded the deal. So that's my feeling about it. And I second Jerry's, what he said too.
Belongs to the citizens of St. Helens. And it has a valuable, you know, for the future, it's worth a lot.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Jerry? This is Parks Commission, very, very well done.
Yeah, I'll give you one of these.
All right, those at large or affected area and opposed, I think we have.
Howard Blumenthal, citizen of St. Helens, I'm also on the Parks and Rec committee. My quick comments are, that viewpoint would be a great place if you reduce the width of that street. You would eliminate the possibility of having any type of disabled parking there, where people that would be disabled would have to walk from a great distance to be able to even get to that viewpoint. Whereby it'd be nice if we had a viewpoint out there that people would be able to, disabled people could drive reasonably close and have a reasonable walk to see that viewpoint. That viewpoint was one of the more stellar points to look over that area. And also the trail going down. I know you guys keep talking about stairs. I recently injured my knees, and I'm realizing that going up and down stairs is a real ordeal. And to me, a steep trail is much easier to negotiate than steps right now. St. Helens is full of very steep trails. They were talking about the bike path going through there. You want to talk about a steep bike path? What about the bike path going between Columbia City and St. Helens? That's got one hell of a dip going through there, which is extremely steep in there, you know. This is public land that somebody wants so that they can develop more. Even if he had to build less units, he still would be putting a sizable amount of money into our urban renewal plan. You know, maybe not quite as much, but there's still room there to develop. We've also got, as you even said, that there's a lot of rock in that area. So the question is, how would you be able to get some of this in there? How deep is the rock? And if you have to start chiseling for weeks to be able to make your foundations just so you can have your 15 units in it, you're talking about changing a lot of their Our oak trees are very precious in this community because we are constantly losing a lot of our oak trees. And view corridors are just really important, and our trees are in St. Helens. Our trees, when they start to become a certain size, they found their niche in our area, because a tree just won't grow anywhere. You just can't walk on your property. If you have an older tree, it kind of deserves to be left alone because it's found its niche to be there, and you get rid of it just because you don't like it or it's in the way. That's kind of becoming a crime. I just hate to see the right of way going down Columbia Boulevard be given away to somebody for major development. You know, it increases just a little bit of their lot. The drop of their parking be easier. That's one thing, but this area is full of people that have things that are right on the property lines. Thank you.
Okay, at large or affected and opposed. Any more people in that category physically present?
Affected, abutting and at large, so I don't know where we are.
Yeah, I'm making sure there's nobody in the Toski category.
I got the trifecta.
Yeah. And,
Anybody on Zoom, Jacob?
there's a couple people on Zoom.
Let's hear from them.
They've got their hand raised.
Okay. If nobody's got their hand raised and they're watching. Go ahead and let,
All right. So then, those abutting.
Abutting, affected and at large.
yeah, I think put 10 minutes.
And then I actually had a slideshow. I'm hoping that we can get that fired up. I want to hear it. Do you have the can you fire up my PowerPoint?
You
Just,
want me to,
do we have a clicker? I know they brought in their own, but I don't.
one right here.
It's sitting right
Oh,
there, but
oh, great. Okay, how do I do it? Which way do I go?
Left and right.
Thank you, Keith. Okay, all right, thank you very much. I'm Steve Toski and this is my wife Robin. We live at 135 North First Street. We also have a property at 215 North River and several other properties. I want to begin with the reason why we started to oppose this in the first place, because it's a horrible deal for the city and it's a horrible thing for the public. This is priceless view property. Make sure that we are talking about, this is what we're talking about here. This is the end of Columbia Boulevard. This is gorgeous property that is asked to be taken away from the public forever, for every generation to come, for the kids that are on the playgrounds now and for the next generation. The limitations on what we can do with this property are only constrained by our imagination and our ability and our will to get it done. And I'm asking the council not to turn it back on the citizens of this city. It's extremely prejudicial for the citizens to be giving this property up. This is the view from the end of First Street. It is a steep hill going down, but there's an 80-foot right of way and you could easily make a path going down, or you could do anything with that property. That tree to the right's in the right of way could be chopped down with more view. I want to talk about First Street. It's a wide boulevard. This is first-class property. We should have wide streets going down with public improvements that when people build these nice areas, there's places to park, there's places to walk, there's places to walk your dogs. This is a huge piece of property that we're being asked to give away to create like a little narrow alley, essentially down one of the main boulevards leading to the river. The public in 2016 was interviewed and polled. The two most important things that the public thought were for the city of St. Helens was access to the river by the public and public views. We're giving away both of these things. This is another view that we're being asked to take away. Here's another view from the top. I chopped those bushes down to try and get people a better idea of the slope, but it is 80 feet wide and it goes back and forth. This is the back of the blue condos. Essentially what this would turn into, rather than this open area that I saw Brad's mom walking with her dog on today, this beautiful path down to the river, that would be a building to essentially 10 feet to the left of that wall, and it would go up 35 feet and extend all the way over to 10 feet from River Street. Because of the setbacks on this property, there would be a huge building there. It would completely block this view and it would turn this into an alley. That's what's being taken away from the public. This is being taken away from the public and from my property. This is directly on my property. That abuts my property. That's in my front yard. Instead of there being light and air and open space, I could have a building sitting there that's as tall as that telephone pole, 35 feet tall with a 10-foot setback. And so, that building would extend from the left side of that vehicle all the way across the front of my building and all the way back across my building. It'd be a gigantic rectangular eyesore.
instead of there being beautiful public access that people can walk up and they can say, wow, look at this wonderful place where I am. That's being taken away from the public. And that's stomping all over my property rights as a budding landowner. This is the public view down Columbia Boulevard. You can't see it very well, but here we come. You see that ugly blue truck that's parked there 24/7, which we probably should update our parking lots. So we can remove that thing and have a nice public view. That is the river you see. If we do this giveaway, there will be buildings essentially blocking the river view on both sides of the street, basically nearly at the front of that truck, because the setbacks get put back. And you can have these giant buildings that are going to block the public view. Here's another view of the public. And then somebody said, oh, look, you can't see anything because of the trees. And you know what I say? Let's go cut them. They're in our right of way. Let's maintain our property. We don't have to give away our property because somebody says we can't take care of it. It's insulting. The way that this thing has been approached to the public and to our citizens is basically, you don't have your stuff together, St. Helens. You're a bunch of losers that can't get anything done. You need to give your property to me. Please give your property to me, Keith Locke, so that I can save you. It's a slap in the face. And I tell you, I know the people here and I know what we can do. And we don't need to be giving our property away to get things done here. That would be a building. Instead of those trees there, that would be a building if you give our property away. There goes another public view, another public access. Instead of there being this open corridor of light and air, what will end up happening is somebody's going to come develop that. And it's going to be these little narrow alleys with these huge buildings, oppressive people looking down all the time, instead of there being this beautiful public way which currently exists. Oh, these are not developers that are here. That's Diane Dillard's property that she sold. That's at the top of First Street with beautiful views of the river. She didn't develop anything. She sold it. This is Keith Locke's. Here's remember Roy Kim who came here? Roy Kim, who came with his family, with his projects, and we vetted him and we made him go through this. This is one of the prime view properties in this city. And what is Keith Locke's resume as a developer? Here's his resume. Here's his resume. There's the door to nowhere. There's his resume. There's the junk that he had at the end of his street until I called code enforcement and got him to move it. There's his junk. There's his junk. There's the junk that's still there. There's a battery that sat there for months and months and months and months. And he came to the planning commission hearing and he said he lives at this property. So I don't know whether he lives there or not, but that toxic waste was sitting there. That's our developer. That's the guy who wants to say, oh, look, give me the property so I can develop it. There is the front of his property torn up. He hasn't put a dime into this place. I can tell you this, developers, you know what they come with? Money. They come with money and they say, you know what, we're able to and can do. They don't come with their hands out begging and say, give me the property so I can develop. He's not a developer, never has been a developer. Oh, this is the change in the property. Battery's still there. And the historic landmark is now covered up with a no trespassing camera sign in front of the four pot plants growing. That's the property right now. That's the developer that's coming here and saying, give me the public property. Trust me, I'm going to improve it. It's prejudicial for our government to say, give our property to this resume. This is his resume. There's the property again, just shows it kind of is trash. Okay, and the Wilkinsons, nice people. Williamsons, I'm sure they don't know anything about this. They're not developers either. That property is sitting there. Frankly, tell you the truth, I have a very, very serious legal challenge to this application. And so if I were them, you know, if you're going to come back, you probably should ask your lawyers to look at what a but means and whether you want to be part of this. Because if the city council goes forward with it, your property might be tangled up. This is the property as it used to be used. So Keith Locke, after trashing his property for years, goes to his neighbors and says, I am writing to ask you for your assistance. And the reason we are submitting this application is to decrease the portion of the unused right of way in order to clean up this area. That's how we approach people. This is in the legal document. And why isn't some of this being used? Well, some of it isn't being used. Here is the actual from the city planning documents, the path that Wayne Wygant was going to put in. That's a drawing from the city's files that I obtained through a public records request. Wayne Wygant was going to pay for that path, and Keith Lott killed it. And then years later, in a public record, in a public hearing, he came to the public and said, this is unused, give it to me. There are a lot of legal issues surrounding that. He did not declare, he also testified in the planning commission meeting that he had been dreaming about this for 30 years. He'd been planning this, but he did not. And this portion here is part of the 2015 plan ordinance number 3181. And I believe that he was under an obligation to declare to the public his conflict of interest, and he should have exposed it to the council. And what he did is he got, some of the councilors to go along with killing this thing, talking about public safety, instead of saying, you know what, this path, it might be a little steep, but why don't we figure out another way to get it done? Wayne is willing to pay for it. He got up and said, I don't know how that didn't happen. Well, I can tell you how it didn't happen. He killed it. He said he killed it in the planning commission meeting. He said he killed it here. He convinced the other councilors to kill it, but he didn't tell anybody about his public interest. I'd like to be able to finish. I'll be brief. Thank you. So that is another problem with this whole thing, because if it goes forward, what we have is a public official in 2016 failing to declare a bias. Then later in a public document that is filed as part of the public process, he says it's unused, but his private interest was never disclosed. So that is a legal issue, which hopefully we are never going to have to discuss at a future point in time. So is it in the public interest to go down this road with this dirt? The proposed use of this vacated public ways to provide additional areas to allow development. So now I'm on my abutting argument. So he says in the public document he wants to develop. He says in his application he wants to develop. And so do we abut? Okay, so the law is, I'm just going to go through this very quickly. If an abutting property owner doesn't consent, then this cannot move forward. You can't do anything with this, okay? So I've submitted this. I submitted this in June. I submitted to the planning commission. We are abutting property owners. We did not consent. There's a abutting property owner on Sue Jones's property, did not consent. And I also believe that the condominium homeowners did not consent. So there's 3 abutting property areas that did not consent. The city said, you know what, that's not how we've been interpreting abutting for this period of time. I tried to resolve it, but we have a disagreement. I think I'm right, because if we go to the map, it shows that I touch right on the map. I can argue about this more. I clearly touch on the map. It's also the legal description. On the legal description, I can go into this if you want, but my time is limited. But without a doubt, in the legal description, my property touches and abuts. The legal definition of abut is, go to the old dictionary, legal dictionary, abut means to touch. Go to the Webster dictionary, abut means to touch. And then back here, I'm gonna have to go back a couple, which I'm not asking you guys to read, but the city of St. Helens development code defines abut as to touch. So there's a legal notice that says, I wanna do this vacancy and for development. I believe that I abut under the code, and I'm asking, you guys don't have to make a decision forever, but I'm asking in this particular case, the city council make a finding that I abut. And for the purposes, because they said this is for the purpose of the development, and the city council will apply its own code, which defines to abut as touch. And I cited the code in my legal documents that I submitted with the city. So I believe there's kind of a fatal legal argument to this thing too. And I really don't want to go crazy on this thing because I think it's horrible for the public. I can't imagine you guys would do this. But I want to show you, this is before the weeds were chopped, where the property lines are and why I abut. And so, you know, you can see that it severely affects me. If there's a building there, it's in my front yard. And I do touch, there I touch, there I touch, there I touch, there I'm touching, I'm standing there. And you know, if John was on the other side of that, we could hug, we abut. You know, that property is right next to mine. And it would have a building there instead of a street or a bike path or a walkway, or just be open space, whatever. But I abut. And so that is, let me just make sure I've got my notes. You know, I did check on this $2.5 million claim. And I asked Matt to give me a figure on that. He said he kind of deferred to Jenny, and Jenny said, really, it's way too complicated. Would it be more urban development? Yes, but the exact amount is really undetermined. So I'm thinking that 2.5 million is fanciful. So this is prejudicial in every single way. And I go with Brenda, and that is, you know, as our world gets more crowded, we're going to need these open spaces. We're going to need this place to be a quality place. And I believe that you should find that it's prejudicial, and then you should reject this application. I also believe you should find that my property abuts and apply the development code. Thank you for your time.
So I believe that is the last desired testimony. So there was an ask for the public hearing to be continued, and that is in the vacation statute of things to consider. So that is not outlandish. There's a question of whether or not you would want to save any rebuttal for the continued hearing, or
I think we'd like to address a couple items before it's continued, but.
okay, I think as the applicant, you would have that right. So I guess this would be round one rebuttal.
Yeah, I'm just curious, take up on that, in all fairness, do we open up the whole process again if we shop this to September?
So what they requested was for the public hearing to be continued.
Yes.
The first thing that the council, we need to make sure the council does is officially continue it to a date, time, and place certain. That way you don't have to re-advertise.
Sure.
That's the one thing we need to do. Now, they asked for the public hearing to be continued. That means the record is open. And so they said they would like to submit additional testimony, and because the public hearing is open, you know, other testimony could be submitted. And so it's a continuation of this exercise that we are in right here.
Mature, in all fairness.
Yeah. And so basically for deliberations on the regular session, you would say, well, it's continued, there's nothing to deliberate yet. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
I just didn't want a door shut to the people who want to testify.
The door is will still be wide open.
Jacob, do we get a chance to ask questions also, or make a statement?
There's well, I mean, it's not technically a land use hearing. Usually there's kind of the order. I would look to the mayor. And are you all hoping to make a statement tonight? An additional statement? Is that what you're?
If Mr. Locke, Keith, makes a statement, yes, I would like to make a statement.
Because normally the applicant gets to rebut.
Yeah.
And that they have that privilege as an applicant. And usually they have the last say, and so I think we need to respect that. If there's additional comments, I would ask the mayor, would you like to receive additional comments tonight?
Well, what I would like is, I would say yes. I would say yes, in all fairness. Question answered. I don't know, but let's go with the applicant. I'll decide at that point in time. Okay, and we may ask questions as well.
Yeah, okay, are you,
We ask the questions that you well, may I ask, so you wanted to actually have a
I
opportunity?
just wanted to ask a question, one question.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, when you say you're open to more testimony when this is continued, does that mean those of us who have already testified
Yes,
would have another?
opportunity.
I have more. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
That's what it would be, if I'm gonna be fair to all the public.
All right, so Mayor, just to clear, so rebuttal and then just some
Yeah.
questions to wrap it up. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's your turn.
This gentleman, I'm not sure who it was, asked a question, that's, why doesn't he do it now?
Well,
I'm not sure.
yeah.
Either way.
Because I was gonna actually let you go ahead and do a rebuttal on the testimony. Gary, you could throw that out here real fast, because you
Yeah,
obviously.
my question was, so this area is, if this vacation is granted, then Mr. Locke could turn around and sell that, because it's his property, correct?
Absolutely, that is correct. Yep. That's something I could easily answer. Go ahead. Here we go.
Yeah, just a couple little things. It was mainly regarding Mr. Hoshke's comment. You know, I don't think Keith has ever identified himself as a developer per se. He's wanting to get this ready so it can be developed. The question of abutting, and I need to defer to the staff because this question came up at the planning commission meeting, and the staff, it's my understanding, and I saw an email from the staff that the staff checked with the city attorney, and it was determined that Mr. Toshke's property does not abut per the state statute regarding vacation. There is a, you know, as you mentioned, there is a definition in the development code. This is not a development code item. Once we get to a land use application, then the development code be applicable. So really, it's in the state statute, the ORS. And, you know, maybe they could talk about that after I finish.
So with what information has been provided to this council, it is a development. In the testimony shown.
No, it's a concept. We're just showing a concept of how it
The
could be.
development, 16 units, and how it could benefit urban renewal.
Did I
That's
say,
what I heard.
who said 16?
15 units.
16 to
15
55.
units.
He said.
Yeah, so Keith Locke actually gave testimony in this meeting today of development of that property. And how it would benefit the city. Well, I'm just saying that. I'm bringing that up.
No.
The abutment we'll look into further.
Right. So yeah, the development code definition does not apply. That would be our contention until a land use application for a development is applied for. You know, the pictures that were submitted, a lot of those, you know, pictures were incorrect, I would have to say, because a lot of the vision of where the buildings would be, this massive building, that's on, some of that's on in the right of way that would be remaining. And some of it would be on the property as it is. It's my impression that some of the testimony is trying to kill the development, any development from occurring on that property. And so to say, I don't want to see a giant building overlooking my property or somebody else's property, that's really unfair to this property owner because he has development rights on his property. Really, the question is there a good reason to vacate some of this road, right? Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I appreciate your time. Chief wanted to.
Not this time, I'll wait for the hearing. And now, plan on making another packet a couple weeks prior to that meeting for you guys. So you have more information.
Well, Jack, there's no ruling whether the council's going to continue the hearing or not. That's Steve Toskey for the record. You can do it, but not, but I don't know if it's automatic, I don't know.
Well, we can go ahead and, anybody opposed to continuing this? Until September. Did it carry over?
So that would be September
Good.
7th.
September 7th, okay. Thank you.
You,
September 7th. Mr. Toskey?
I can briefly comment on the statements about the pictures, if you want to hear it now, you can wait.
Let's wait till the 7th, okay? And I would like the staff to further the abutment. And is it okay if we have that PowerPoint presentation from Toskey?
Yes.
Okay.
And the whole thing.
I'd like to look into that just a little further and make sure.
Yeah, we're
This is
prepared,
the state statute.
we're prepared to talk about that, so.
So, all right, so we're gonna go ahead and continue this. And there'll be another.
One more thing. I
Yes, sir.
do have a perspective on the legal issue, which could help direct the council when it's asking about this issue, because I have discussed with staff the legal issue, and I don't believe what was stated on Mr. Locke's side is a correct recitation of what has been relayed. And so I can outline what my understanding is of the legal issue. And that would assist the council potentially in asking their attorneys questions about how these legal issues may be resolved.
Can I ask a favor that you submit it to the councils, us through via email?
I'll send it to Ms. Payne.
Should it go through me or should it go through the planning?
I want it to be to the recorder because it's
You have to go to public record. So I'm okay with that, because that would be like testimony.
You can distribute it to the council and to the other parties.
Okay, that's all, that's fair. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and postpone this till September 7th.
So
We'll redo the whole,
we would need the motion,
yes.
so the date and the time. Yeah,
So would somebody like to make a motion?
so deliberations wouldn't occur
Yes.
because the public hearing is continued. At least it makes the regular session slightly easier.
What is the date? What is the time?
September 7th,
Checking the time.
Well, September 7th.
I would say 5:30 in all fairness.
Say
That was 6 and
2 p.m.
Okay, good.
No
It's an empty slate, so September 7th at 5:30 here in the council chambers.
Yeah.
Okay, so if there was a motion to officiate that,
So moved.
second. Okay, a motion's been made and seconded to postpone this till September 7th at 5:30 p.m. Council President Morton,
Aye.
Council Topaz.
Aye.
Council Berkeley,
I.
and I'm an aye as well. Thank you for your testimony, everybody. And with that, this public hearing is postponed. So we're gonna take a 10-minute break before we start our regular session. If you want to stick around, you're more than welcome to.
be a big. Yeah, I do, that's right. When you and I met.
That would be better than.
At least two. You know, I guess it's not like on surveyor.
Yeah, they're.
That's.
I didn't take it down.
Because I did, that was nobody, nothing happened.
Saturday.
I mean, I can do it.
So I like.
You're good, Brenda. Thank you.
See, Emily. Goodbye. Mexico kind of ruined.
Seems to big and I'm gonna drive that. They decided. I was pretty. I see. Beach slay and it.
I said I'm not following, saying.
So Steve, I just. Yeah, details, but yeah. Yeah.
So you're out that.
Go ahead.
Just worried about. I mean, stuff on that flash, right?
Yeah.
Oh, flash drive he provided.
There.
At the orange one.
I don't have one here.
Yeah, I got it next week.
Give me the answer right now.
Looks like it. Yeah, there's my car. Next thing, maybe.
Yeah, I can bring it.
So,
How you doing? I was gonna tell you up in the system. Farm and.
I'd have to go to my GIS. I don't have that.
Yes. Let's take a look. Double zero. And then.
Oh, yeah.
You know, when I lose. Because the wording. Almost 100% makes sense.
Here. Okay, we'll go ahead and call this council regular session to order. It is August 3rd, 2022. The time is 8:18 p.m. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we'll go ahead and open it up for visitor comments. If you'd like to make a comment, please come on up and say your name and keep it to 5 minutes or less. And if you are on Zoom, please raise your hand. We will acknowledge you. And we're not seeing any, so we're gonna go on to the deliberations of the vacation have been. The vacation has been recessed till September 7th at 5:30 p.m. If you'd like to give testimony or show up in favor of or opposed or neutral, that would be the time. Okay, ordinance first reading, ordinance number 3286, an ordinance to amend the city of St. Helens zoning district map to add a planned development overlay zone for certain property located at the southeast corner of Pittsburgh Road and Meadowview Drive intersection. Okay, then we'll go on to the resolution 1961, a resolution approving referral to the electors of the city of St. Helens at the November 8th, 2022 general election, the question of whether to prohibit psilocybin service centers and manufacture of psilocybin products within the city.
I move we adopt resolution number 1961 as read.
Second.
Okay, a motion's been made and seconded to approve resolution 1961. Discussion. Okay, when you've been watching, we're just putting it up for a vote. If the voters wanna have it, they can, and if not, they'll shoot it down. So give it to the voters. Council President.
Aye. Aye.
Council Topaz.
Aye.
Council Berkeley.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Award of vintage contract.
Question, Jessica on the line?
No.
Okay.
No. Counselor Chilton, I want to say, by the way, is on maternity leave, and will not be back for a couple more meetings. So we hope to see her sooner, but we understand. Very important part of a mother and baby bonding time. So award and big contract, and congratulations too, by the way. Award and bid contract. Award and authorize mayor to executive contract for 2022 annual spring project to Specialized Pavement Marking LLC in the amount of $38,002.
I move we award bid contract as read.
Second.
A motion's been made and seconded to approve award bid contract. Any discussion? All right, Council President Morton.
Aye.
Councilor.
Aye.
Sorry.
No, that's, you go, yeah, that's you.
And I'm an aye as well. Okay, approve and authorize for signature, 5 extension of agreement with Columbia County for community corrections work crews. 6, First Amendment to agreement with Keller Associates Inc. for Water Master Plan update. 7, contract with Duke's Root Control Inc. for services to eliminate roots from sanitary sewer system. 8, Second Amendment to agreement with David Evans and Associates Inc. for Columbia Boulevard Sidewalk and Safety Improvements Project. And 9, notice of measure election psilocybin moratorium.
I move we approve and authorize for signature items 5 through 9 as read.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, Council President Morton.
Aye.
Council Topaz.
Aye.
Council Berkeley.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Consent agenda for approval. 10, council work session, public hearing and regular session minutes dated June 15th, 2022. 11, proposed youth librarian, 1 youth librarian job description, and 12 accounts payable bill list.
I move we approve consent agenda items 10 through 12 as read.
Second. Okay, motion's been made and seconded to approve consent agenda 10 through 12. Any discussion? Council President Wooden.
Aye.
Councilor Topaz.
Aye.
Councilor Berkeley.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. I don't think we had any work session items, right? So let's go to council member reports. Go with Council President Wooden.
Got a couple things from the Parks Commission. Which you heard from tonight a little bit as well. They're always involved in so many things. And the first thing they wanted to weigh in on was a street vacation, and they were here and you heard that. So that was one of the motions that they made and you heard about today, tonight. That, you know, they took a vote on their motion to deny that. So that's kind of old news. There was a motion by Commissioner Belcher, seconded by Lathrop to direct city staff to create a budget for the urban trail on the proposal. And you saw that again, the urban trail proposal come by you, Mr. Belcher submitted that just in case we didn't get it or we stuffed it away or whatever. So he's and the entire Parks Commission is really behind this. It's a great proposal. So again, I want to read that, make certain that you folks knew it. And then a motion was also made to move forward investigating murals for concession stand on the bathroom buildings of Campbell Park. So this isn't the first time something like this has come up with the Arts and Cultural Commission's kind of mission, in a sense, and the parks asking the Arts and Cultural Commission possibly to do something like this. Okay, so this gives the Arts and Cultural Commission, I
Something
think,
to do, fun.
something to do, and it's brought about a motion and a need from our Parks Commission. So mostly, I think, Steve, this might be in your ballpark, but it's something that can work with a collaboration between the parks and the Arts and Cultural Commission to get something done. I think it's a good proposal.
As you know, it's the arts and cultural been kind of on hiatus. Rachel's helping put it back together again. And this becomes the first real thing that they could do is sit around and talk to each other. It sounds like a good idea.
It's great, and I think the last time we did that was with trash cans. We had to paint the trash cans in the parks for the Arts and Cultural came up with 4th of July happening of individuals throughout our community and businesses and people stepping forward to paint their trash cans, and they're still out there, but we haven't done that in 3 or 4 years.
So this mural idea actually is being worked on right now. It came up 3 months ago with the Main Street program.
Good.
Yeah, so they're actually heading it and are doing a bunch of real soon planning around that. So that was correct, right? The movie theater presentations when we heard about it.
It's pretty cool. Murals are great. The Astor column and the Astoria is one of the icons of the Northwest. And I can hardly wait till that smokestack gets a mural on it down there at Boise Cascade. I think it would just be ideal. Okay. Anyway, that's my report.
Following up on that, is this, these murals to be permanent or?
Of course.
Oh, the question is, for long, I mean, we didn't want graffiti down.
No, this will be art, this will be art.
And it will be permanent,
Yes.
and we'll.
Yeah, this is based off of, what they're basing it off of is what was done in Verdun.
Oh,
So they have legitimate artists in, are moving forward with that, but I'm sure anybody who wanted to add to or arts and cultural. Should definitely get with Main Street.
Or if you want to see some murals that are pertinent and permanent, Port Angeles is kind of a city of murals in the States, go across into DC. And a place called Chemainus. I think every building has a mural of their heritage. And it's amazing, and it's one of the top tourist towns in BC. It's wonderful. People go there.
It's a special food bank has actually started one. That's what it looked like today. If you drive by and look at the.
I saw that.
Yes. Yeah.
oh,
Nice.
Yeah.
there's
Just
a,
the little side wall.
there's a town in Ohio along the river that has a huge long concrete wall, which is part of the levee, which turned into a mural of the history. I mean, it looks a heck of a lot better than concrete for.
Of course.
I mean, if done correctly. Now, did they ever say whether it should be a contest or was it up to the Arts and Cultural Commission or how they want to?
Well, in the paint the trash cans, they gave $150, $200 to bury the groups, individuals. They had several categories, but it was wonderful. It was a huge activity in the park. Yeah, it was nice.
Okay, so it's up to them to get it done. No holds barred. We just want murals.
These are concepts, these are ideas.
Well, not just we want murals, actually approach building owners. Talk to them first. Anything else, Doug?
No, but there was one that died, and that was when the Arts and Cultural Commission wanted to put something on the post office. And without really kind of researching what that does to the US postal system and what their policies are and those kinds of issues, it got kind of sticky and some feelings were hurt, I think. But yeah, to the owner.
Yeah,
Right.
I was gonna say that was a really good.
All right, so anything else, Doug?
No.
All right, Counselor Topaz.
Okay, two things. I've read or reviewed the proposal by Mo Forster, how to do some measurements of the lagoon area for the waste disposal area. Have we ever asked the community if they wanted a waste dump there? Or have we ever had an open house, for community input on that? That was a question. The other, that's the question. My next thing is, on the cooling center, it's kind of been, what temperature do we open it as a cooling center? And basically, we're gonna go with the weather system, it's 32 outside, but the wind chill, it feels like, when it feels like they have a number now, when it gets to the feels like number, then it becomes a cooling center. As compared to say it's 89 or 87. If it feels like 87, it opens up. So that's what Susan and I and John's been involved in some of that.
It'll be a little higher than 87.
Well, I know, but
Yeah.
but it's the number is not the thermometer number, it's the field like number is described by, I think it's the National Weather Service.
Yeah, that's.
The working with the county emergency management folks and we're just a service provider in that, where
They'll be called.
the emergency management folks are tying in to the National Weather Services tiers of
Sure.
whether it's a weather watch or weather warning
Yeah.
or that we can
Here.
respond accordingly. Right. Usually feel with heat, we usually know a few days out.
But as I mentioned before, it's not the typical rectangular room with things that people sitting in the cool. It feels like a real nice place with the library. And there are people who really need that, and we do have the air conditioning facilities there, so it's nice. That was about it.
All right.
Right.
Sounds Berkeley.
Yeah, just a few little things. So I attended the sheriff's National Night Out, as I see Mayor Scholl is there as well, and had the opportunity to talk with Sergeant Eggers and observe Sergeant Eggers and Ryder do a demonstration along with the new sheriff's canine. Oh my gosh, forgetting his name. I was very proud of our canine. It's obvious he's a veteran. But anyway, that was very nice. Tomorrow, going to be visiting the reservoir. I'm doing a little field trip. John is going to go just to take a look in. And anyone else is interested in participating, but anyway, heading down there just to take a look, because I've never talked about it, and get a chance to see it with my own eyes.
What time is that?
9 o'clock. I think we're meeting here at City Hall at 9 o'clock, and heading on over.
Sounds confirmed.
Hi.
9 o'clock tomorrow. 9 o'clock tomorrow. As compared to tomorrow at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, they'll
Big
do
doors.
that.
On the reservoir tour.
I understand too that, that we gotta put on, what is it, Mohammed, said we have to put on, harnesses to get on down in, so that'll always be fun. I think, let's see, I was looking at Kathy, can confirm this, people can still file, run for, city council
Oh, the 15th.
August 15th.
until August 15th, so, time for
It
that.
requires either X amount of signatures or $50. And what's the amount of signatures?
I think it's 55. I can't remember.
Yeah, it's 100 or less.
Yeah, when I did, it was like 50 something, I think, and,
That's right, you did actually get the signature.
yeah, something like that, so. It's based on what a percentage of the registered voters, and anyway, so folks, that's how democracy works, so if anybody, been thinking about it, you still have time. And between meetings, I spent some time doing some research about hazardous waste. And actually, Councilor Topaz, I believe you are correct, yet there haven't been any public forums or hearings, but I do believe that we've had that discussion, that we are going to be having those, and as a matter of fact, I was looking at my blog. I know 18 people looked at my blog when I was running for election, where I had a little spew on there about the lagoon, what my view was as a candidate, and I remember at that time thinking that this is probably one of the more significant and substantial issues we would have to deal with in the next several years, and that public input and public outreach is absolutely important. And I think that the step that we took at the meeting on the 20th, entering into the agreement on exclusive negotiating agreement with US Ecology, gives us an opportunity to have some resources for providing information to the public and engaging the public in that. And I think contrary to a published article in the Chronicle last week, the city council has not made any decisions to begin bringing toxic waste to the lagoon. That just has not happened. And and as I look at that, I just encourage people to be very to continue to educate themselves and be engaged in trying to understand what is possibly being proposed, and about just what we are talking about when we're talking about waste. If you go to the Environmental Protection Agency website, if you go to the Oregon Department of Environmental Quality website, toxic waste will tell you that when we're talking about what is going on is hazardous waste. And so I hope that as we continue our dialogue as representatives of the city, whatever, that we are careful about how we speak, the terms which we are using, and making sure that we are relying on the best information possible. And I do believe that includes very heavy public engagement. Because I do think if there's anything that we decide, I mean, who's not for developing the waterfront, right? Who's not for developing our parks and things? But I do think that this decision is the eventual decision, whether it happens in a few years, 3, 4, 5 years, it's going to have as long lasting an impact as anything else we do. So I just really hope, I'm promising my part to do my part to learn as much as I can. I know we have many people in the community as well who have had experience with working with similar type projects, and my intent is to speak with each of them individually, and they might be people we would involve, but that I really do believe that we can set the tone as a council in the discussion, that we are actually talking about real science and real information, and addressing people's legitimate concerns with factual scientific information. So
Thank you, Councilor. You bring up a good point. You know, we did have informative meetings with the concept that were open to the public. So with the concept of the toxic material or hazardous waste, you are correct. It is not toxic. It's hazardous when it comes to the certain levels. We had those very early on, and they were actually they were open, and we didn't. They were like at 2 o'clock, and so we probably didn't have any participation because of the time frame. This has been going on for quite some time, and it will have many eyes around it. It'll have all kinds of DEQ, governance, regional solution team. You know, this has many layers to it, and for citizen input is vitally important. I do appreciate the fact that you did bring up the article, because that really upset me as well. Reading that we are backdoor dealing with companies is simply not true. No decisions have been made, no information has been withheld. I am no different than any other member of this council. And I really would appreciate some trust from counselors in a phone call, especially before such an outlandish letter is written to the paper.
So there's a difference between studying, which I've actively been involved in with ever since the term lagoon came up, rather than making plans. No plans that I know of have ever been made. We've always just studying the issue, and we haven't even come close to making any plans. There are concepts, there's kinds of things that we can do. We can brainstorm, we can do all kinds of things, but we stay away from plans at this point until
And yeah, and if I, sorry, and it would, if I may just one other thing, part of my research to this too, is that we are not just simply talking about picking up dredging from Portland Harbor, wet dredging, and putting them on a barge and bringing them up and putting them in the lagoon, that this process involves the whole process of remediation. There are it's remediation, so it is not just, it is much more than scooping up sludge, putting it on a barge from Portland, bringing it up here and dumping it in the lagoon. There's much more behind it, and that's why we did enter into the negotiating agreement, and why we will continue to do our due diligence to find out if this is in the best interests of the.
The article pointed out that the agreement was with a company that manages, not studies, but manages. We do have another operation going in that study. That was not mentioned there. The article is about a company that manages waste systems. Which means you have, when you do that, you're gonna have some system that's gonna handle waste, and this company is gonna manage it. That's what the article said. Now, one of the other problems, one of the other problems that comes up with some of the DEQ words is they will talk about a particular compound is acceptable up to, say, 1 part per million. 2 parts per million is not acceptable. That's their official word. Now we come up with another compound that's acceptable at 0.5 part per million, but if you go to 1 part per million, it's not acceptable. DEQs does not say what happens if these 2 compounds are present together. And there are a couple of possibilities. 1, they could neutralize each other. 2, they could add to it, which then makes it a toxic, or they could multiply. And the way the law is written now, they look at each individual compound without anything else being around it, and they declare it a problem or a toxic condition. And that's one of the things that should be cleared up, especially with a waste plant that has the possibility of bringing in stuff from all over. Some of the stuff that comes in may be innocuous, but when you mix it with some other stuff, it's not. And that's one of the problems.
Okay.
That's
Great.
great.
Councilor Berkeley have this time.
But Councilor, I agree, and that's all part of the discussion that we should have. I don't think we're in disagreement there. That's part of it. But the fact is that we would enter into negotiation. Negotiations mean you may or may not enter into an agreement. So the council has not, in fact, agreed to move ahead with a waste treatment facility. It has not. So
You agreed with a surveyor.
Councilor Topaz, your opinion.
That was your opinion, that was use of the dictionary.
No, that is simply your opinion, and it is not the facts of what this council has learned. You are.
That's true, that I'll give you, that I'll give you.
And you are entitled to your opinion.
Which is a surprisingly well-educated opinion, by the way.
But it's simply not the facts.
No, that's not true. That's not true.
Councilor Topaz.
How can you tell me why I'm not telling the truth?
Councilor Topaz.
You're gonna shut me off, but you don't wanna hear what I have to say. Thank you.
No, I'm not shutting you off. I'm not gonna sit here and argue with nonsense. That is, tell me the compounds that you were talking about. You know them all?
Yeah, oh, I know a lot of them.
We're all gonna learn.
Well,
So-
okay, have you ever been involved in
We're
an
all
argument?
gonna learn, Councilor Topaz. It is actually Councilor Berkeley's time, and I'm not even sure if he's done yet, so I'm gonna ask you to stop.
So I guess, so your opinion, Council Topaz, is that we have entered into the agreement. My opinion is that we have not. We can discuss that. That can go on at another time. So I guess I'm done with my report.
Okay.
Can I check? Do you know that I work with the artificial kidney?
Artificial kidneys, are hazardous waste.
No, I just answered that question first.
Maybe my artificial kidneys actually does filter the hazardous waste.
You know what? Do you know what artificial kidneys are used for poison management?
You don't know, you don't know, you're trying to make it. How many people have
Let's get some stuff out of it.
I
Come on.
want you to know that's my report,
Okay,
okay?
but you just told me I've done it.
I've
actually you're making a joke at me.
I'm not, you know.
Well, you just said about your
your
opinion.
opinion.
No, my opinion. I've worked with the artificial kidney developer, the artificial kidney. I've dialyzed people who have got poison, who had some of these toxic problems that are in the micro business because they interact. That's why I'm so adamant about talking about this. And you're sitting here saying, I know nothing about it. I've worked on people with this. Yes, and you don't believe it. Check out Cole.
Okay, I'm just.
No, you made a joke at me.
No, I'm
No
not
problem.
making a joke at you. I'm trying to figure out how it's relevant to a hazardous waste dump in a 39-acre lagoon.
It's hazardous waste because the
Your
compound,
medical background.
no, the problem is,
I'm not
I'm talking about the
I have
compound.
the people. Will you please allow me to report?
Why? Because you don't allow me. You just told me I don't know.
You asked your time. Council Topaz, you're out of order.
Okay,
It's my report,
good.
my meeting.
Well, I go to the council meeting.
It's my report. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the Chilton family on their baby. Congratulations, baby London. And so I also did actually go to the sheriff's office yesterday and witnessed Ryder, and I think it was Bosco. Does that sound right? Is it Bosco? No, Bosco, I think, is the county cop. They're both, yes, yeah, you're gonna look it up. But it was, I actually was able to throw a few balls and get Sheriff Pixley into the water, so felt pretty good about that. The sandcastle competition, this weekend, for our citizens, need to get over there and check it out. I don't know if tickets can still be purchased online. But it is very, I'm gonna be one of 5 judges over there. And they're gonna give me the protocol to be looking for, what I need to be looking at for when it comes to judging for sandcastles. Actually, the team over here, what is running it, actually won the event, most recently in Long Beach. So that is very, very cool. Congratulations to them. It looks like the weather's gonna be perfect this weekend. So please get out there and enjoy the sand sculpting, sand castles, and the OMA coming up, the 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. I'm looking forward to getting with the other mayors and doing the retreat and going through some work sessions. And what I'm most looking forward to is presenting Ellie Luke and Rosie Parsons with their award, first place award, if our mayor contest winners, and spending that day with their family. 2 brilliant young ladies, and Hayden Stram is a very brilliant young man who got 2nd place and got a $300 check. So just looking forward to that, and I'll bring back some good information to share with the rest of the council. Yes, so yeah, so with that, yeah.
Just one, before we get out of this meeting, and one point of clarification that the work we're doing with US Ecology is aimed towards a subtitle Class B permitting process, which is a facility, and US Ecology does subtitle Class C facilities as well, and C are hazardous waste facilities. These most certainly are not. We've never talked about receiving hazardous waste here at this what may or may not happen here. So I want to definition. We're not looking at Hanford and all that stuff as goes far away up to Arlington and way up in the hills there, and that is not on the table whatsoever.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And it's what I wanted to all the stuff, but
Subtitle D facility is things like, typical landfill, but it wouldn't even be that much. It would just be a limited waste landfill, limited to the city's own sludge that it has now in the lagoon. And that's dredged wells from there.
But I was correct in saying that we had open meetings
And they've been spread out over the years.
Yeah, they were during.
It's not fresh at all.
Yeah, yeah. It needs to be, definitely needs to be refreshed and done, yes.
Yes, the theme all has never changed from if it can't be done safely, we're not interested.
Yes, thank you. And I guess that's what I was trying to say myself, but thank you for clarifying that. Those points.
Hazardous waste we don't consider safely, so.
Oh, and one last thing is this 13 nights has been rocketing. That has been really awesome. The weather has been cooperating. Looks like it's actually gonna cooperate tomorrow if you would like a little bit of cool weather. Not gonna be raining. We could actually wear a jacket if you wanted to, probably bring one. I would. We're on the river. So I just want to give a shout out to EPC and all their efforts and thank them. So with that, we are adjourned.
I guess as I stated.
There's some transposing going on there.
I would, yes, and I know, I agree, and that's what I was trying to, I guess, trying to, our definitions of hazardousness, and we are, okay. Appreciate it.